Right, boys, you want to just say hello, see if it's working and I can hear you?
Hello. Hello.
Right, boys, you want to just
Alright.
say hello, see if it's working and I can hear you?
Hello.
Alright. Say hello, see if it's working and I can hear you? Yep, cool. Cool. Right, let me just share these links and then we will get started. Right, we'll just give this sort of 30 seconds or so, let everybody join, or anyone that's going to join to come along, and then we will start chatting. Okay, right, well, officially, welcome everybody to our first ever FTRL All Things Football podcast. Something a little bit different to what we're used to doing, so it's going to be a work in progress, so please bear with us. All this is really is just an opportunity for us to speak our mind about what's going on in the world of football, add a little bit of a variation of things. We've got a lot of football supporters in and around our racing league, and we thought this was a great opportunity to express some opinions and do something different. So joining me for the first one will be Will, or FTRL Panda as you may know him, and Joe, or Joe Burns as you probably will know him. And yeah, so welcome boys.
Thank you very much.
So we're just going to go through a variation of different topics, mainly involved around the Premier League today, just obviously with being the first one, something that we're more kind of comfortable with. They're all going to be just opinions, so don't start slating us and going mad if you don't agree. But anybody that has any points or anything they'd like to add to anything, we'll be keeping an eye on the stream, all three of us hopefully, as much as possible. And yeah, please share this around and then we will crack on. So like I said, keep active in the streams, guys, and then we will keep an eye on what's been said and go from there. So first point, going to go straight into it, and I think this is one of the main talking points across the Premier League and the world of football at the moment, is obviously the dominance of Liverpool, Manchester City. I know it's quite an easy place to start if you like, but I mean, the first question I want to ask is, have Manchester City got worse this season, or have Liverpool got better? Who wants to take that, Joe? I know you're a Liverpool fan. Have you got anything you'd like to initially say on that comment?
I just think we've just overall got better. I don't think City are by far any worse. I just think the new signings that we've made over the last year or so has just closed that gap a little bit.
Yeah. See, if you look at Liverpool's squad on paper, yes, they've got the likes of Mo Salah, who, you know, didn't quite cut it at Chelsea initially. Then he went off to Roma, then he came into Liverpool, and everyone thought he was going to be a bit of a one-season wonder. Didn't start off this season as well, I don't think, as what people might have anticipated, but as the season's gone on, he's kind of come into his own. Obviously, you've strengthened your midfield, brought in Van Dijk, so the quality of the squad's better, but do you think that on paper your squad is as good all round as Manchester City's?
No.
See,
No way.
in my opinion, I would look at that and think, right, well, the first initial point, in my opinion, would go straight to the manager. Because I think Jurgen Klopp is one of, if not the best manager in world football. I know everyone's going to say it's going to be Pep and everything that he's done and achieved, but the only real thing that I think Pep's done I mean, he took his first job at Barcelona, which at the time, when they had the likes of Xavi, Iniesta and all of the other guys playing arguably at their best, he's gone into a team which are pretty much cert to be one of the best in the world. Then he's gone to Bayern Munich, who just dominated German football. Other than when Klopp was there at Dortmund, they've dominated German football for years. And then he's come to City. He's had one season to rebuild them, and then fair enough, turn them into a fantastic squad. But with all of the money that they've got, then you go on to Liverpool. Yes, they've spent a lot of money, but do you think they've spent better, or do you think what's your kind of opinion on that?
I think we've definitely spent better. I mean, if you look at the way City have spent, they haven't sold a great deal. They've just spent a shed ton of money. Whereas you look at just Alisson and Van Dijk alone, I mean, we basically bought them for the sale of Coutinho, which is great business by Michael Edwards, who's the director at Liverpool, if nobody knows that.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've had the first comment in from City Posh, who's an FTRL driver, who said, personally, from a City fan point of view, I think Liverpool doing well will make City be more hungrier and will make them more competitive. So, Will, do you agree with that statement? Would you say that that's kind of the intent? Did you think City might have underestimated Liverpool this season?
I don't know if it's more because the other teams have sort of got used to playing Man City in that style a bit more, because they've got a lot of the same players they played last year, and obviously they got the highest point score in Premier League history, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that again. So I don't know if it's them playing worse or everyone else just sort of understanding how they're playing.
Well, see, this is it. I think what happened with Manchester City last season was it kind of came out of the blue, unexpected, and in my opinion, I would say they're arguably one of, if not the best Premier League side. Obviously, Premier League forming in '92, but the best Premier League side that I've ever seen, and arguably the best Premier League side ever. I know you've got the likes of the Man Uniteds back in the day. You've got the Arsenal Invincibles and so on. But the way that, not just the way that they got the results, but the way that they played Manchester City last season, I think that can't be overlooked. So I think it was absolutely phenomenal. But at this stage, I'm looking at the way Liverpool have kind of turned this around, because last season they were still a very, very, very good side. And yes, they've bought better and they've spent a lot more money than what maybe they normally would have done, and that was largely down to the sale of Coutinho, like you said, Joe. But looking at it, like a game, perfect example, like today, Liverpool conceded 3 goals to Crystal Palace, but they still managed to find a way to win. Do you think that's where the managers really sort of put their focus into? He's seen that he's got an amazing group of players, a really, really good squad. But do you think what he's done is he's tried to focus his style of tactics and management to win the games that they might have dropped points in last season?
I mean, he's definitely done that this season. You can just see by the results. We've got a lot of 1-0 wins, whereas, over previous seasons we probably would have dropped points in those games, which is why obviously we're a lot higher. But I mean, today was a little bit of a weird one, because we've not really seen Liverpool concede more than 1 or 2 goals in a game since Van Dijk came in. Since obviously Jurgen Klopp came in, it was sort of like a gung-ho approach where it was just simply we score more than you, which this season it seems to have calmed down a little bit. And like I say, we've just sort of grinded out those 1-0s and the 2-0s and just sort of killed games off, which is why today was a little bit nerve-wracking. But like I say, champions win games like that. I'm not saying we're going to go on and be champions, but if you want to win the Premier League, those are the games that you sort of, maybe when you should have dropped points, you end up getting the win, which is good.
Yeah, and just one kind of final point on this topic before we move on. Looking at the way that the style of management has changed in football, I think Klopp's the pinnacle of that to me. You look at him and he sort of kicks every single ball, lives every second of it. Pep's, more of the kind of tactician, the kind of, in my opinion, he's kind of the split of the old style manager and the new style manager, because he can get passionate, but he tends to kind of sit down and just watch things unfold. But with the
manager.
Yeah, with the way that everything's kind of changing now, and there's been a massive transition in the last 4, 5, 6 years in football, do you think that the more passionate managers are starting to be the ones that are getting the most out of the clubs in general, not just the teams? But you've seen, I mean, as an Arsenal fan myself, when you had Arsene Wenger sat on the sidelines and he was more interested in trying to zip up his coat than showing a bit of passion, it really is a sort of kick in the bollocks, really, because you think, and you look at Chelsea when Antonio Conte came in. Fair enough, he had a relatively good reputation, and then he went on with Chelsea, and he was one of the first ones that we saw in the Premier League that had that kind of passion and that real kind of drive, and the fans saw that, and that sometimes elaborated the fans into being the 12th man. That's such a popular sort of phrase in football. So do you think that the fact that Klopp is that style of manager has won Liverpool games?
I think it definitely helps. I mean, everybody wants to play for a passionate manager when it comes down to it. I mean, you can just see with the way Mourinho got shoved out of United, players just didn't want to play for him anymore. And I think that's kind of what you were saying about, all these old style managers like the Wengers and Mourinhos. Their football is very much in the past. Which, I mean, Klopp being very passionate, I think, definitely helps the players because, like you say, gets the fans going, which obviously helps if you're at home.
Yeah. Anything final from you, Will? I know obviously Joe was predominant in that, but obviously with him being a Liverpool fan, it's kind of a specific topic for him. But have you got any final words on that kind of situation between Liverpool and City?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the signings they brought in, everyone was saying that centre-backs, goalkeeper, you had Klavan, who was playing a lot last year, you had Mignolet, and now you swap both of them for Alisson and Van Dijk. I mean, that's massive, obvious improvement.
Yeah, absolutely, I do agree with you completely. But moving on, the next topic is one that might throw up a bit of a divided opinion. But with like the development of players like Jadon Sancho, obviously people like Reece Nelson on loan from Arsenal at Hoffenheim, who's doing a brilliant job this season. Jadon Sancho's broke into the England side and become one of the hottest prospects in world football. Do you think teams like Chelsea, with the fact that they've got so many young English players and people like this, do you think it's kind of killing the English international young talent? And the reason why I say that is because if you look at some of the players or some of the, one of the biggest transfer stories that's going on at the minute is Callum Hudson-Odoi. Now he's a teenager who played a handful of games for Chelsea at most, supposed to be an incredible player, plays really, really well for England at youth level and so on. But Bayern Munich have come in now 3 times for him and they've upped their bid to £35 million for him. But Chelsea are reluctant to let him go, and it almost seems now like he's just getting a few sympathy minutes from the manager. But do you think things like that is what's maybe damaging the prospect of English football in particular at this moment?
I mean, Chelsea's a bit of a joke when it comes to loan players. I think they hold the record for the amount of players loaned out, which I think is like 47 or something, which is mental. When you think of how young all those players are, I think it definitely affects it because when you see all these players just rotting in the reserves, like even Loftus-Cheek, I mean, he's a class player, which is probably going to be one of the future midfield stars of England. And he had to go a lower league. Went to Wolves and Watford, I think, and Crystal Palace. which, I mean, there's no point having this many players on your books if you're just going to continuously loan them out.
Yeah. Anything from you, Will, on this topic, first of all, before we go into more detail?
Obviously, if they pick them up as youngsters, they do get access to very, very good training facilities, being for a club of sort of Chelsea or Man City or something like that. But at the end of the day, they do need sort of minutes at a high level, and if they've got so many of the same players, they're just not going to get it, really.
No.
And there's an argument to say that they have them just for some of the sort of European or Premier League squad rules, where you have to have like so many English players or homegrown players.
Yeah.
So that might be why some of them are there.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I'm just looking. I'm going to quiz you both really quickly. So I know, Joe, you said about them holding the record for the most amount of loaned players, but have a guess how many people they've got out on loan this season, Chelsea.
I know it's in the 40s. It's definitely in the 40s.
Yeah, it's 41 players are currently out on loan. Guess how many of those are English?
I'm going to guess more than half. Yeah.
No, it's pretty much bang on half. It's 21 players. But if you look at this, right, you've got the likes of, before he moved, you had like Nathaniel Chalobah, who obviously then got a permanent move to go to Watford, and he's now thought of massively there. Since he's gone to Watford, he got called into the England squad a couple of times. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, when he had that season at Palace, he got into the England squad, went to the World Cup. You've then got other players like
Nathan Ake. He was a
Nathan Ake.
Bournemouth rating pretty highly now.
Exactly, and now he's a Dutch international, plays alongside Van Dijk sometimes. And then you just look at even other people. Like one of the biggest ones for me that I see is someone like Tammy Abraham. You look at him, right? Think about that season when he finally got that opportunity to come and play in the Premier League on loan when he was at Swansea. When he was at Swansea, everyone was talking about him. Even if he didn't score a load of goals, the way that he played and the injection of youth and talent that he brought to Swansea, it completely transformed it. And he then got into the England squad. I think he scored twice for the England senior side in just a couple of caps. And then you look at him this season, and then he's gone back on loan into the Championship to Aston Villa. And you just think someone like him, who's a young, prospective English footballer, fair enough, he might not get into the England squad or be playing all the time. People like Harry Kane in there. But even so, surely, if you're Chelsea, in your crisis at the moment where you haven't really got a striker, and I know they're looking at bringing in Higuain, but someone like Tammy Abraham, a homegrown talent, proved himself time and time and time again. He's just not getting opportunities. Now, you've seen England won the Under-20 World Cup, the Under-17 World Cup, and they're doing all sorts of stuff at youth level. So there's obviously a lot of talent there. So why aren't these players being played?
Too many Europeans.
Yeah, they just
crazy. No room.
I guess they could either spend sort of years developing an English talent, or they could just, since it's got so much money from TV rights and things, they could just go and buy a ready-made one.
So, but then on the other hand, if they've got no intention of playing these players, then why do they still keep them? Because you've seen the likes of Bayern Munich are coming in for 35 million, like of Callum Hudson-Odoi. Jadon Sancho at the start of this season was, people might have heard his name before, but no one really saw him or knew what he was about. He's then gone to Borussia Dortmund, one of the biggest European clubs, got into their starting 11, playing alongside the likes of Marco Reus and Mario Götze and people like this, standing out as the Bundesliga as a massive star, and he's just a young English talent.
Debut.
Yeah, made his senior England debut. You think to yourself, how many of these young English players are at clubs like that and are just not getting opportunities?
Too many.
Exactly. And even someone else, right? Obviously, Gareth Southgate, England manager, was the under-21s manager before, and I commend him for what he's done in terms of he's given younger players an opportunity. And we saw at the World Cup and whatever else that those players are really, really talented. But then there's a couple of other players that I want to just bring up. Right, one of them being someone called Lewis Baker. I'm sure we've all heard of Lewis Baker, yeah.
Is he a Chelsea one?
Yeah, he's a Chelsea one, but he spent a couple of seasons out in Holland with Vitesse. He's been at Middlesbrough. He's currently on loan at Leeds, and he was, if not mistaken, the under-21s captain for God knows how long at England. I think he was Chelsea's apparent under-23s captain from like the age of 18 or something stupid. And you're thinking, well, why ain't this guy suddenly blossomed? And I just think like clubs like Chelsea are just killing it, in my opinion. I really, really do. But and whilst I read, there's been a few comments come through. So whilst I'm just reading through those, has anyone got any final words on that?
I mean,
you summed up pretty well there.
You mentioned England, but not only is it like not only clubs having that many young players, or like say ruining England, but they're also massively inflating the transfer market. When you look at players like Lukaku and Pogba and De Bruyne, all these teams that were in the Premier League initially have left their sort of club that they were at as a youngster, either gone abroad or just moved to a lower Premier League side, and then they come back or they buy them back for 80, 90 million, and suddenly the transfer market is just bumped up another level because that's just normal money now. It's getting quite insane.
Well, there's been a couple of comments come through. First one, one of them from Pagani saying, I thought Phil Foden would have had more of a look in at City by now. What do we think about that?
He was getting sort of a fair few minutes last season and he got injured, and since then he's not really got back in. I don't know if that's because of him or City just sort of really desperate to win now that Liverpool are in front, so they keep playing their sort of star players. Yeah,
I mean, maybe like a club like Man City, who are, let's be fair, at the moment, one of, if not the best footballing side in the world. Maybe aside from Liverpool. It's definitely those two, in my opinion. Phil Foden, I mean, give Pep his due. He does give him some minutes. But I think eventually he will start to blossom in Manchester City side and become one of their main players. But the important thing, and the thing that he's doing that's different to a club like Chelsea, is he's keeping him on the books and he's keeping him hungry by giving him minutes as and where he can. If City are in a comfortable position in a game, which they more than likely are, Phil Foden does tend to come on and play 15, 20 minutes at the end of a game. Now, I know that's not a lot of football, but it's still some form of football. So I kind of understand what Man City are doing there. But Ravers Avengers just popped up with a comment saying, players need games, especially young players. If you look at our best players over the last 20 to 25 years, Gaza, Rooney, Gerrard, etc., they were all playing first team top division football at the ages of 17, 18, 19. Managers, chairmen, club fans not interested in the national team. They want and need immediate success, so they buy mainly established foreign players to get success immediately. Which, you can't argue at that point at all. But
that's just the way the Premier League's come on, though. Like, he mentions a few players there, like Gaza, Rooney, Gerrard. Then you think of Michael Owen, Heskey's. But that was back in the time where clubs used a lot more of their youth, whereas because the Premier League now is a much bigger league and has a lot more money, revenue, advertisement, this is where now it's getting to a point where, like he says, all those foreign players are coming over, and instead of bringing them through, they're just getting bought and sold.
Yeah, I mean, just a final point on this, right? So, and I'm sure this is going to be something that we'll discuss in the future, but if you look at leagues like Spain, Italy, France, Germany, the other arguably top four leagues in Europe, a lot of their players play together, or a lot of their international players play together at some of the top 3 or 4 clubs in that particular league. Like Spain is mainly Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. You've got Italy, who are mainly sort of Juventus, maybe a couple of Napoli players in there. France, you've obviously got PSG, Monaco, whoever else. Germany, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. And how many of those guys have come through an academy, broke into the first team at the club, stayed there and become a fantastic world-renowned footballer? I mean, there's a ridiculous amount of them. But in England, it's the complete opposite. And this is one of the reasons why I think England haven't been so successful in the past however long. I know we had this golden generation of players with Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard and so on else. But from then on, England were just a massive disappointment. So I think having someone like Southgate in charge who's been there at that youth level and seen it all unfold in first person is one of the best decisions England have made for a very, very long time. But yeah, I mean, any final words on all this?
I think we pretty much summed all that up, to be fair.
Cool. Will?
Yeah, I think that's wrapped it up.
Cool. Right. Well, one thing we have got to discuss is what's going on at Newcastle. So I know we've got Pagani here. I know he's going to be voicing his opinion, and I'm looking forward to that. But first of all, we'll start off with the fact that they won 3-0 today against Cardiff, which was, for a club like Newcastle, should just be a standard result. But with their current situation, it was a massive 6-pointer game for them. Now, a couple of little stats. Between 2007 and 2016, how much on average do you reckon Newcastle spent on players per season? Bear in mind, we're talking like an 8-9 year period.
I'm gonna go like. I remember when they had that couple of seasons where they brought in loads of players like Thwavin or whatever the hell is spell his name. I'm gonna say like 20 to 30 million, or like sort of 20 to 40.
Sorry, I've misworded that. It's net spend. So net spend on players. How much more have they spent than what they've sold in that 9-year period?
5 million.
What are you saying, Joe?
I don't know. I'd probably say about 30-40 million.
So their net spend on average per season in the 8 to 9 year period was £700,000.
Wow.
And I've seen this. I mean, I've been obviously looking up on loads and loads of stuff, and this has been a repeated stat that I've seen. And
That's crazy.
Obviously, Newcastle being up for sale and everything being up in the air, the fans obviously hate Mike Ashley and whatever else. And there was obviously all the controversy during the week about all of the stuff that was being said by like Rio Ferdinand and people like that, saying that they should be thanking Mike Ashley as opposed to getting him out of the club, which caused up a massive stir. And Pagani, if you're there, please give us your argument to that. But obviously we know his net spend. Newcastle aren't spending any money. Mike Ashley's big in retail. Now, you know obviously he owns Sports Direct, yeah?
Yeah.
So, since that obviously all materialised, in June 2017, Newcastle put £9 million towards Sports Direct. And from that, and all of the advertising that they get and everything else, Mike Ashley has spent not a single penny of the Sports Direct advertising income on Newcastle. Not a single penny of all the advertising.
Yeah, he obviously just used it as another part of his businesses rather than an actual football club.
Yeah, and obviously there was this infamous letter that Mike Ashley sent to John Lewis saying that he was going to invest, prepared to invest like £40 million into John Lewis and whatever else. But you've got Newcastle, who, let's be honest, are a massive football club.
Oh yeah.
They
I
have,
live in Newcastle, and the
Yeah.
people are utterly obsessed with it.
yeah, they're a huge football club, and with an owner like that, I think the only reason why they're even still half standing is for their manager.
Yeah, they did a great job to get Rafa.
Yeah. So Pagani just said Newcastle got 50 million last season for staying in the Prem, and Mike Ashley spent that on House of Fraser. You look at a club like that and you think, what on earth are they doing? Like, what's your opinions on the situation at Newcastle? Do you think the fans have got every single right to be pissed off? Do you reckon that what the pundits were saying is right to a certain degree? Give me your opinions.
Go on, Will. I'll let Pagani shout at you first.
I mean, obviously the fans have got a right to complain. They pay good money to go and watch their team play football, and when your owner's making such a massive profit and then putting none of it back into the team, you're not going to get anywhere near the standard of football that you'd almost expect in Newcastle. So it's obviously not fair on the fans, and in that case, yeah, I reckon they've got a pretty decent right to complain about it.
Joe?
I agree. Like I say, Newcastle, one of the biggest clubs in England. They've got one of the biggest stadiums in the league, if not again in England. They probably are up there with some of the highest earners due to the size of the stadiums and things like that. I mean, I understand where this whole Rio thing was coming from, because like I say, over the years Mike Ashley has probably put a lot of money into the club since he's been there. It's just that's obviously come down a lot, whereas the last 4 or 5 years he's not really put any money into it. So I agree with Will that the fans definitely have obviously the right to be angry, because Newcastle should be a lot higher than where they are at the minute.
Yeah. I'm just reading up on a couple of comments. Well, Tim12 is saying he's going to be discussing the Dutch League, not today. We're going to be talking mainly Premier League today. Pagani's saying he wants to punch Mike Ashley in his fat beer gut. He bought the club as a plaything and it went sour, and now he's milking it as a cash cow. We used to fill the stadium in the Championship, for God's sake. The crowd base will always be there, and I think that's something that can't be ignored. Like you said, the St James's Park is probably 50,000 people. I don't even know
It's about 55,000 capacity.
Exactly. And I mean, Arsenal being 60,000, that I know that they bring in millions each match day. So you think to yourself, just that alone, where is all this money going? I know they've obviously got wages and whatever else to spend on, but they haven't really got players on huge wages. They've not really got massive names at the club. You just think, where on earth is all this money going? And with someone like Mike Ashley being this apparent huge Newcastle supporter and lives and breathes the club, credit where it's due to a certain degree on the fact that, yes, he has invested money in Newcastle, albeit a very little amount. But, I mean, what is he really doing? Like, do you think he's taken that club to a point now where it's been up for sale for so long, there's been bids that have fallen through and people just don't seem to want to buy Newcastle? Do you think what he's done to that club has made it just unappealing?
I mean, that's what's going to happen if you don't put money into the team. Obviously, if you don't invest in the squad, your squad's only going to get worse. Pagani probably won't like me saying this, but it's a little bit like Sunderland, where they've got worse and worse. They've got worse and worse over the years, and then they've brought in players on very high contracts. which are just not very good. Like you look at some of the players in the Newcastle side. I mean, to be fair, they've got Richie, who I think is a very good player.
Yeah, I mean,
And then you've got other players like Kieran Clark, who I guarantee is probably on a high wage. It's not Premier League standard, in my opinion.
no,
So you get in this sort of football where if Rafa Benitez wasn't there, they would definitely be in the relegation zone, probably back in the Championship, and you're losing the revenue then from the Premier League, and nobody's going to want to buy that. So yeah, it's only going to go one way.
yeah. Well, City Posters come in and said I think that Mike Ashley is hanging on by a thread until they go down, sooner rather than later. If they don't spend money into the club, I think the reputation between both the manager and the owner will deteriorate, and Rafa will end up leaving, which, in my opinion, would be an absolute disaster for Newcastle. Pagani's then come in saying wages were capped at like 50,000 maximum when he bought the club, hence why most of our established stars then left. People have tried to buy the club on 3 separate occasions, but he turns down the offers. So I can't see any immediate improvement for Newcastle until Mike Ashley goes, and I think that the vast majority of Newcastle supporters will agree with me on that. And the thing is, you can't even look at it and say that, look, the ultimate goal is to be a Premier League side. They are a Premier League side. They've got one of the best managers in world football. Fair enough. Without Rafa Benitez, Newcastle are an average Championship level club with the squad that they've got. And I just, you can't argue with that. And if you look at who their star players are, like you said, I mean, they got Dubravka, fair enough, he's a fantastic goalkeeper. You've got
Lascelles?
Yeah, Jamal Lascelles came from Nottingham Forest, good young English player. But, with how good Jamal Lascelles is, he's not even been close to England yet. And centre-back was a position that we needed for a long time and arguably still need to look at to a certain degree. But, you've got Matt Ritchie, fair enough, Scottish international, not really set the world on fire. And in this season, their main talisman, Salomon Rondon, who's on loan from West Brom, who went down last season. If you look at Newcastle over the years, they've had Shearer, they've had Owen, Beardsley, whoever else, and now they've got Salomon Rondon, a Venezuelan who's on loan from West Brom, and he's basically single-handedly keeping them in the league at the moment. That just shouts and screams trouble to me.
I mean, when you put it into perspective of spend, if you think of Fulham, who have just been promoted to the Premier League, spending over 100 million on a basically new squad to compete in the Premier League, and then you look at Newcastle, who've probably not spent near 30 million in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, Will, this is just a question in general. Obviously, I know you live in Newcastle. We've obviously been around that environment. You probably heard people talking about the football and everything like this, but someone like Alexander Mitrovic, right? They brought him in from Anderlecht, and he was all, hyped to be a really, really good player, and I still think he's a very good player. He hated being there. It was evident. It was all over his face. He hated being at Newcastle. He's then gone to Fulham. They absolutely love him. Fair enough, Fulham aren't in a good position at the minute, but he basically single-handedly brought them up last year and scored the vast majority of their goals this season. Now, why do you think he hated being at Newcastle so much? Do you think just because there's so much negativity around the club, it just makes players not want to play there?
It's not a good environment having that sort of all the fans complaining about the owners, the presumably bit of tension between the manager and the owner. I mean, that's why a lot of players left Hull City as well, because the manager and the owner didn't get on. The fans don't like the manager. Well, not the manager, the fans don't like the owner. Didn't create a very good atmosphere, and we lost a load of players because of it. So I guess it's because of that. I mean, to be honest, I lived right next to the stadium last year, St James's Park, and the atmosphere in the actual stadium during matches is fine. It's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get that negativity around the fans and the owner, but on a match day, the atmosphere is quality is very good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll move on from Newcastle. Not too much more to kind of discuss. Just final point on that. Pagani said Matt Ritchie's our best player by far, the only player that shows heart and plays for the badge week in, week out. There was pressure on Mitrovic, but he couldn't handle that pressure and got 4 red cards in one season as a striker. So that kind of says it all, really.
I was banging them in for 4.
Yeah, exactly. But just let's talk a little bit more about what's happened today in the Premier League. One of the, as much as I don't like this football club very much, they've still got to be spoken about. Manchester United. Obviously, I know you mentioned earlier on, Joe, about Mourinho leaving the club and whatever else. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's come in, won every game so far, I think. Do you think he's the right fit for that job?
I think United's board did a very good job at timing when they sacked Mourinho.
It was a big risk, though.
A risk, yes, but
the only reason I say that,
the run of games United have gone on, regardless of who they brought in, the fans would have been behind them regardless because of how bad Mourinho was doing. It's sort of like a win-win because if you keep Mourinho, you probably lose those games, draw those games, whatever. But you bring somebody else in, regardless of what they do, whether they win, draw, or lose, the fans are probably going to be behind them because it's not Mourinho. I think sacking him now in this run of all these games, Solskjaer's come in, big positive buzz. They've got their momentum because they should beat these teams without a manager. And now, they've gone 7 games unbeaten. The only team that they should have been beat by is Tottenham. Had it not been for David De Gea, that probably would have been 3-4-1. But as always, De Gea keeps the minute. So I think at the minute is being highly overrated. I think against Arsenal in the Cup, they're going to face another tough test. I don't think they've played anybody yet that's tested Solskjaer, in my opinion.
No. Anything from you, Will, before I share some points?
I don't think he should be there. I don't think he should be their manager, to go on for the next few years with. I mean, he's doing the job now as an interim, but let's be honest, they're playing, as Joe said, some pretty easy teams with the exception of Spurs, which I watched that game and they should have lost. So I think it's more just the fact that their team, as in the quality of their players, are winning the games at the minute. I don't necessarily think it's the manager.
Yeah. I mean, the only point I will say in a positive light for them and for Solskjaer is the fact that if you look at, obviously, Man United with their huge history, with someone like Sir Alex Ferguson in charge, they won anything and everything that you could possibly think of. They were one of the most feared teams in world football. In my opinion, they're arguably still the biggest team in world football. I know you've got Madrid, Barca, but every single person on this earth knows who Manchester United are. And they're a huge football club. That can't be overlooked. Now, Solskjaer played and was successful in a team under Ferguson in their twilight years. Now, with Mourinho and everything that happened with him, Mourinho, let's be honest, he is a fantastic manager. He's done some brilliant things and he's managed at some amazing clubs. But wherever you go sometimes, or whatever clubs you're at, you've got to understand that a club's got a certain philosophy. And Mourinho, in my opinion, didn't suit Manchester United at all. Man United have always been known as this flowing, attacking, sort of ruthless football team, and that's the reason why they've been so successful. Now, Solskjaer, like I said, was in the core of that Man United, twilight era, like I said, and that's the reason why I think he's doing the job that he's doing at the moment, because he knows what it takes and what needs to be around that club for them to be successful. Now, I know everyone's going, they've still not got an amazing squad or whatever else, but you look at it, they've got Romelu Lukaku, they've got Paul Pogba, they've got Alexis Sanchez, they've got Rashford, Lingard, all of these players. Now, they haven't got a bad squad, so no one can tell me that. Far from it. So, I think that, in fairness, Solskjaer's a good appointment, and I don't think they should write him off in terms of as being an actual permanent manager for them. Because if he proves it, fair enough. Yes, they've had not the best run of games in terms of the tests that they've had to face, and yes, David De Gea kept them in that game, but that could have just been, I mean, we know De Gea's quality, but that could have just been down to the fact of the manager's just given some belief into the players and made them feel like they're a part of something. So that's
comes down to this sort of what we were talking about before, where all these older managers are sort of getting outgrown. You could tell by the way Mourinho had United playing that half the squad didn't like playing the way he sort of set them up. Solskjaer said himself, all he said to the players is just go out there and play your natural game. I don't think he's setting them up in any sort of, tactic. He's not setting them up in a tactical way where they're outplaying teams due to tactical prowess. These teams should be beaten with the squad that they've got. All he's telling them to do is go out there and attack, which with the quality they've got on the pitch is all you need to really do. When you play the big teams, like we say against Tottenham, where you need to be tactically set up, they struggled. Again, without De Gea, they would have lost that game. I think the big test for Ollie is going to be when they play PSG. I think if he gets past PSG, then fair play. He would probably get the job next season. So I think that's going to be a big tie for United. I think that's going to be a big test for him.
Yeah. Anything from you, Will?
I think we discussed that pretty well.
Yeah, cool. Well, reading some more comments, and Ravers is saying, give it Giggsy till the end of the season. Pagani saying that Pardew was a great manager for Newcastle, plus loves a good dance on the touchline. And Ravers then followed that up with and likes to headbutt the opposition.
Yeah,
but
he did headbutt my David Marler.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, just one final point on United. I think with Solskjaer, what they've got is they've got somebody there that is extremely passionate about that football club. I saw an interview with him earlier on this morning, and he literally just sat there and he just said, I can't wait to go to bed at night because I'm so excited to get up the following day and go to work. And you've got another passionate manager in him, maybe not as expressive as someone like Klopp, but just having that extra rush of personality and adrenaline on the sidelines, and someone that the players, let's be honest, they respect him a lot because although he might not have been their United's main striker for all those years, he certainly contributed, Champions League final 99 and other stuff like this. So I just think you've seen United just been taken off their leash really, and they're nowhere near the finished article. And I think if they're still aiming, he said he's aiming for third in the league this season, which I think is a little bit out of their grasp. But nevertheless, I mean, if he proves himself, then he proves himself at the end of the day. So, well, that's United covered, thankfully. But a couple more points we'll go through, not too much more to cover. Another result today was Bournemouth ended West Ham's little run of form, which saw them sort of shoot up the table, winning 2-0 at home. The question I've got for both of you, and I'll come to you first, Will, how good is Eddie Howe?
Very, very good. I mean, he's taken Bournemouth all the way from pretty much the bottom of League 2, isn't he?
Yeah.
Now he's on a very limited budget. When he first came into the Premier League, he always kept him up there by playing some very good football. And now they've just sort of built year on year, and now they're a really, really sort of solid Premier League side. And in this day and age, you can't underestimate that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've played at Dean Court before, and I know it only holds about 12,000 people. So I mean, in terms of a Premier League club, it's a tiny, tiny club, and what he's done there is just absolutely phenomenal. But what do you think? I'll stay with you, mate. What do you think he's done that's made them sort of this so highly respected Premier League football club? Because let's be fair, when they come up, it come out of nowhere, and everyone was rooting for him. Everybody loves Eddie Howe. He's just kind of brought them out of nowhere to somewhere. So, and with the addition of maybe a couple more years and a little bit more finance behind him, with the football that they play, they could be very, very close to European football. Let's be honest, they could be.
Oh yeah, they could be. I think it's when they were in the Championship, obviously they had that season where I think they won and came up or something like that, and they were playing sort of in the sort of like way they play, like sort of fast moving, nice possession, passing football. That was something you didn't really see that much in the Championship at that time. You didn't get managers there trying that, and even lower Premier League in the end, you got people trying to sort of like nick a result 1-0 or something. But he was one of the first ones to just try and get his players to actually play.
Yeah, Joe, Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I mean, I was very happy when he didn't leave Bournemouth when he looked like he was going to end up at Everton. I remember they were chasing him quite a bit, which I think would have been a bit of a step up too far. Sort of a bit too quickly. He's one of those sort of managers where you don't want him to do like a sort of David Moyes. I know that's a bit of a weird comparison, but when he made the jump to United, you could just tell how swamped he were, and he just didn't have a clue what the hell he were doing. So I hope Bournemouth keep hold of him for at least 2 or 3 more seasons, and then I think we probably will see him in a big job, to be fair. I think he's one of the guys who are getting linked with the United job, but again, I think it's too soon for him. I think he should stay at Bournemouth for a few more years, and then I'm sure he'll end up at one of the big guys.
Yeah. Well, I can't disagree with anything that's been said, to be honest. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and it's good to see a young English manager taking a club from nowhere to somewhere. Like I said, I think he's done an amazing job. Just one more topic from today's action, and we've got one more topic after that, and then we will wrap this up. But let's talk quickly about the resurrection of Southampton under the new manager. Like, it's Ralph Hasenhüttl, I think his name is. Do you think that he's... I mean, yes, it's early in his Southampton days and whatnot, but let's be fair, he's brought them out of darkness, and he's injected something new into Southampton that we've not seen for a long time.
Very Klopp-like.
Yeah. Do you think he's overachieving at the moment with a bad squad, or did Mark Hughes not get the most out of what he had?
I don't think Southampton have got a terrible squad, to be fair to him. We've got some really nice, neat players. Especially with Danny Ings as well. I think he's a real good striker, just unfortunately didn't get a chance at Liverpool. Through like numerous injuries and stuff. But yeah, I mean, like I said, he's very Klopp-like. He brings a lot of passion from the touchline. I mean, when they beat you guys in the first game, the manager went absolutely mental. And when you go to that from Mark Hughes, it's going to add a whole other level of passion, not only from the players, but from the fans. And it just adds that sort of belief, that it doesn't matter who you're playing, as long as you work hard. And he plays like a sort of pressure game like Klopp as well, like a sort of Gegenpress, which I'm sure the Southampton players coming from Mark Hughes didn't really play either. So I think he's got them playing some nice football. They've gone on a pretty good run, like you say. So I mean, it's nice to see. To be fair, I like seeing managers like that.
Yeah. Well, Pagani's come in and said, "Am I the only one that doesn't rate Mark Hughes as a manager?" Will?
No.
I didn't. I mean, I didn't really realise he was rated, was he?
Yeah. I mean,
I've never sort of, gone on to some news or newspapers or whatever and gone, "Oh, where's Mark Hughes?" Everyone's saying,
I'm still surprised all these years later that he got the City job somehow.
Yeah. I mean, from a personal point of view, QPR's in my family, and he was at QPR for a period of time, and you just got this sense of negativity with him. Whenever I used to go and watch any of their games and stuff, like Loftus Road, if I don't know whether either of you two have ever been there before, but it's a brilliant little stadium. The atmosphere is wicked there, and you know the fans are so passionate about QPR, and even when they had, you know, sort of Tony Fernandez, and he was putting all of this money into the club, and they had the likes of blooming Djibril Cissé, Loic Remy, and all of these other players at the club. You know, they had a brilliant squad, and someone like Mark Hughes there. You know, it was just, you could just tell when the players come out in the pitch, they just look pissed off all the time. And it amazes me to this day. Mark Hughes, let's be honest, was a phenomenal player, and he was. But that doesn't always mean that ex-players are going to turn out to be brilliant managers. And I think Mark Hughes is a perfect example of that. You know, he can play a relatively nice style of football, but it's so sort of limited as to how often that happens. Like, I just think I can't understand how he would get a job in the Premier League or even the Championship for that matter. He really doesn't seem to cut it for me. But City,
it's that sort of manager merry-go-round, though, isn't it? Where whenever a team's struggling, it's always the same sort of managers that are floating about, like your Allardyce and your Pardew, your sort of, you know, your Pulis, Mark Hughes, you know, the other guy who I can't think of.
Who's that one that did Aston Villa for a bit? And
Sherwood.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, I mean, City Posh is in there saying, seems like players got sick and tired of managers at Southampton, and you know, I can get that, but you look at when Ronald Koeman was there a few years ago, Southampton were a really tough side to go and play. Yes, they still had Van Dijk and whatever else, but you know, they got 75 million for Van Dijk, and what have they really bought in of quality? In my opinion, Mario Lemina, their centre midfielder, is a superb player, and he doesn't really even get in the team anymore, which amazes me to this day. But you know, you look at Southampton, especially with all of their academy and their youth products that they bought out. You know, Liverpool's had blooming probably 90% of them, but it's you look at some of the players that they brought through to that club, and again, Southampton are a big club. They should not be where they are, and I get the fact that football's changing and everything's, you know, in a bit of a transition, but a team like Southampton, they should be doing so much better than what they are. But no, I think the new manager is a brilliant fit. I think the guys in the stream were saying, yeah, they got him from Red Bull Leipzig, and you know, that was his last club. I mean, they're a brilliant club, as we know. But yeah, I think that kind of passionate manager, along with that sort of gegenpress style of football and whatever, is working at the moment. So let's see how he ends up. But I mean, so far so good. Pagani's put a quick question in before we move on to our final point, saying, is Chris Hughton a massively underrated manager?
Well, I wouldn't say
he's a Brighton, isn't he?
Brighton manager. Yeah.
I
wouldn't say he's underrated. I wouldn't necessarily say he's overrated either. He's just one of those managers that I think everybody acknowledges is a good manager, but he's never gonna do anything special. He's just gonna keep a club playing stable football, getting stable results. Yeah, he's just an alright manager, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, what do you think about Chris Hughton?
Same as Joe, really. He's he's not underwhelming. He's not, you know, incredibly brilliant. He just sort of does a decent job.
Well, I remember when he took over at Brighton, and Brighton were pretty much down towards the bottom of the Championship, and that season he missed out on promotion by like a hair's width. There was nothing in it. The following season he got them up as champions. I think they beat Newcastle to the title, if I'm not mistaken, or the other way around. And he's now turned them into a really established Premier League club. They sit in mid-table at the moment. You know, fair enough, they got a new stadium down there, which is a lovely stadium. But with Chris Hughton and what he's done at Brighton, I mean, their main talisman's Glenn Murray, and I mean, this is what I mean. Like the reaction of someone saying like that, like Glenn Murray, fair enough, he'll score you goals, but he's not he's not a world beater, is he? So
No.
I think he's an underrated manager personally. I think he's absolutely fantastic, and I mean what he's done with a club like Brighton is just it can't go unnoticed, and I think he'll go on. I know he was at Newcastle for a bit as manager, and he had a bit of a poor time after Newcastle, I believe. I think he went to a couple of different clubs, and then he got the Brighton job, and he's just kind of settled himself down now, and he's done a brilliant job. So no, it's a good question, that Pagani. But the final topic that I want to discuss is my club.
Oh.
So the Arsenal. So
The Goonies.
yeah, obviously there's a lot of things to discuss with Arsenal, but we'll keep it relatively short and sweet. Would you say, Will, that the fans are currently being too impatient?
Yeah. I mean, if that is what the fans are doing, I don't really know. But if to be honest, I mean, obviously you've probably got a better idea than me, Aaron. But yeah, if they are sort of like really a little bit underwhelmed at the minute, they're thinking as soon as they get Wenger out, they're going to be sort of, top three fight for the title again. I think that's a bit ambitious. I mean, it's quite a big style change, quite a big uprooting, a big change. Yeah, you have to sort of get used to that. I think you can't expect it to immediately turn into a title-winning club.
No. Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't expect to go from having a manager for 20 years and the way Wenger screwed the team. I think you've got a lot of average players on very high wages.
Yep.
Which, again, is Wenger's fault. Or the board's fault. Again, I'm not... I wouldn't know that, but... I think Emery's come in and done a cracking job. You can see the results that they've had this season. They've just beat Chelsea 2-0. It looked very, very comfortable. I don't think you would have seen that a couple of seasons ago. You've given a lot of the big boys a very good game this season, and you've not got the greatest of squads. Okay, you've got a very good attacking side, but your defence, is bang average. I think you've still got a couple of seasons of rebuilding, but I think he's going to do a very good job there if you just stay patient with him.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it from obviously a fan point of view, I mean, I've been looking and, you've got an owner in Stan Kroenke who owns Arsenal, but his main passion is he owns, 3 or 4 teams in American football, baseball in America. And he invests so much money in those clubs. Now, I get that Arsenal have bought in Aubameyang, they bought in Lucas Torreira, who wasn't particularly expensive, Socrates, who was only about 15 million, Leno was probably about the same sort of price. So I think Emery's bought really, really well this season. But like you said, you hit the nail on the head with your first comment saying that you've got a load of bang average players on high wages. And some of those players like Granit Xhaka and whoever else, they're not Arsenal quality players.
Alex Iwobi.
I'm trying not to even mention him. I'm trying not to even mention his name.
When you think you've still got Carl Jenkinson on your books, who is probably on 80 to 100k, and I don't think has played for you in the last 3 or 4 years.
He's on 62 grand a week, Carl Jenkinson.
I mean, that's mental.
That is the easiest 62 grand a week I've ever heard.
That's just absolutely crazy.
I remember when we signed him from Charlton, right, and it pissed me off to the point of no return, because I'm thinking, what on earth have Arsenal just done? They bought him in for the sake of a few million, right? Fair enough, you can buy someone for 2 or 3 million and it's not really much risk. But you put them on £62,000 a week. And you think, what on earth are you doing? Like I said, then you've got the likes of Iwobi. I mean, and I will give him some form of credit. He's been better this season. But in my opinion, he's still nowhere near even European level football. Like I think he's a bang average player. And he just epitomises this whole point with Arsenal. And in the next point I was going to bring up, is what Pagani's just said. Losing Aaron Ramsey on a free transfer. We lost Alexis Sanchez. Fair enough, we sold him for a few million, whatever it was. But he would have gone for
million, I think.
yeah, he would have gone for a free in the summer. So fair enough, they got Mkhitaryan and 25-30 million for him. But he was about to go on a free transfer. Mesut Ozil was his contract expired, and somehow he decided to stay. And then he's now earning 350 grand a week, and he's played 150 minutes of Premier League football in the last 2.5 months. And you think the only question I've got about Unai Emery is when he was at PSG, he had exactly the same problem that he's having with Ozil. He had it with Neymar. The highest paid player. Neymar absolutely hated Unai Emery, and he wouldn't. I mean, Neymar's still Neymar. He's going to produce quality and do these unbelievable things, but I mean, Ozil's not even getting the chance to play in the team. Like, what do you think is going on there? Do you think Emery's just being stern and saying, right, well, you either need to lift your performances, or you're not going to play? Or do you think it's a case of he just doesn't like him? But what do you think?
I just don't think he fits in with the way he plays.
Yeah, so that's just what I was about to say. I just don't think he's. Yeah, I just don't think it's the player that sort of player Emery looks for, really.
But if you look at someone like Mesut Ozil, and please give your opinions in this stream about Arsenal, about anything. Like, there we go, Simon's in it now. 350 grand a week to play Fortnite. You know, it's just the way I see things is you're now losing Aaron Ramsey, who I think he turned down. We offered him a new contract, and I think it was in excess of just over 200 grand a week or something like that. He told Arsenal he wanted to basically match whatever the highest earner was earning to stay at the club. And this is somebody that we bought from Cardiff and trained for years, turned him into a fantastic player, because he is. And he wanted us to basically double his wages or triple his current wages to stay at the club. Now, he's now signed a pre-contract agreement to sign with Juventus at the end of the season for 160 grand a week. So you think, what sort of a mess is this football club? Like, let's be honest, Arsenal are a massive football club in world football. Like, has this...
The problem with that is, I don't think Emery wants to be held ransom by his own players. I mean, he's obviously coming with a clear mindset of who he wants to play and who he doesn't think fits within his team. Arsenal fans are complaining that most of the players are on too high wages, yet they're slating Emery for not offering Ramsey 300 grand a week. When, in my opinion, he's a great player, but to be on 300 grand a week, I don't think is even close to what he should be earning. I mean, in my opinion, I think he's just asking for too much money there. There's no way he should be earning that much.
No.
When you think Aubameyang is probably just over 300k.
No. Aubameyang, do you know how much he's on?
No idea.
160 grand a week.
Alright, fair enough. I mean, Torreira, which I do know, is on about 60k a week, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, when you think of the job he does and the job that Ramsey probably does, they're not similar players, but they probably do just as much for the team. So why should Aaron Ramsey be paid 240 grand more? It's mental. So, okay, you could probably have a go at Emery for not renewing his contract, but at the same time, you can't sort of get too angry because Ramsey is just simply asking for too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, anybody that thinks that they should just be earning, like double the amount they've been offered elsewhere just to stay at a club isn't a player that wants to stay at the club. So, in my opinion, get rid of them. As a fan, I would much rather have a squad of 25 players that all want to play for that football club than 15 that want to play, 10 players that don't want to play, earning loads and loads of money and just don't give a two shits about the club.
Exactly. Would you rather have Aaron Ramsey, or would you rather have 4 or 5 Toure's on the same wage?
Exactly.
Don't ask Aaron that. I mean,
no brainer.
It's clearly Toure.
I love Torreira. I think he's amazing. But just final couple of points on Arsenal is what do you think? We've obviously already discussed the squad to a certain degree. What do you think Arsenal really need to establish themselves again as a big club? Because at the moment they're not.
Van Dijk. Well, they don't need Van Dijk, but they need a player like Van Dijk. They need a really sort of controlling centre back that really sort their defence out.
If not 2.
If not 2.
See, you look at what happened with Emery, right? Arsenal went on, 23 games unbeaten in all competitions. And he was playing 4 at the back, 3 in midfield, 2 wide players and a striker. Sometimes he played a flat 4-4-2. But whatever way, it was 4 at the back. And he then changed, went 3 at the back, which is what Wenger did in the last couple of seasons when he really, really went shit. Now, I think before this season, Arsenal had one good, not great, good centre-half in Koscielny. Mustafi is very inconsistent, can be brilliant, but most of the time he's very average. He's now brought in Socrates, who I think is brilliant. Like today, I saw him win a tackle as the ball was going out for a corner. It ricocheted off Pedro's leg, went out for a goal kick, and he got up and started celebrating. Right, with proper passion on his face. Now I think to myself, that is exactly what you need. If you've got 11 players like that, then you're going to be a lot more successful than what you already are. Someone like Alexander Lacazette, last week or the week before, whenever we played our last home game, he got taken off as he normally does, or he doesn't start and comes on. He went off the pitch, the whole crowd started booing because he's taken off Lacazette. Lacazette, his immediate response was he turned round and he sort of jogged off the pitch, was shouting at all of the players, clapping, trying to motivate them, did everything like that, showed a real professional attitude, went off the pitch. Yeah, he was pissed off when he come off, but he went about that the proper right way. Now, you look at other players, they don't give two shits if they're playing or not. And I think if you want to establish yourself as being a club like Arsenal and as big as what they are and where they should be, you need to, over the next couple of seasons, just eliminate all of the people that don't want to be there. And even if Arsenal go downhill, but they show a hell of a lot more passion, as a fan I would much rather see that than just this continuous circle of shit, to be perfectly honest.
Maybe it's going to do Arsenal some good then, getting rid of players like Ramsey and not playing. I mean, you were saying earlier that Ozil has got class. Like, he has got class, but there's always been a question if he's really bothered. I think that's the problem. Obviously Ramsey isn't. He asked for twice the money. He's gone now. So if you replace them with some really sort of passionate, dedicated players, then maybe you'll get that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm just reading a couple of the comments in here, and Simons has said the game's gone. Wages over the world are an absolute joke. I've never got how players can demand such a high wage. And Ravers has then said agents need sorting out. They're in players here saying he's on 150k a week, you're worth at least the same. And Pagani's then said Arsenal need to get rid of the attacking fullbacks and get ones that can defend. So, which you can't disagree with any of those statements, to be honest. But the only thing that concerns me is you look at the players like Lacazette, who waited a long time to leave a club like Lyon, who he loves, to then go and play for a club like Arsenal, which, although Lyon are a big club, Arsenal's a huge club. He's then done that. He's shown every single week he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he loves being there. But the manager, I can't remember the last time Lacazette got 90 minutes, and that concerns me because we waited for a striker like him for a long time. And if you've got two players like Aubameyang and Lacazette, you should be doing all you can to accommodate both of those into your squad.
Yeah, if you play those, we were having a discussion the other day, weren't we? If you play them two up front, you're asking if you can think of a better sort of attacking pair.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody else can name two, like a partnership of actual strikers, not wide players, actual strikers in the Premier League, please do. The only ones that you could possibly say is Aguero and Jesus. But I mean, Aguero's getting on now, he's still brilliant, don't get me wrong. But is Aguero and Jesus better than Aubameyang and Lacazette? I don't think so. You know? So, that's the thing. And one final point on Mesut Ozil is everybody's really, really quick to slate him. And I personally think he's a magician of a footballer. But his two previous clubs, Schalke, Real Madrid, when he left Real Madrid to come to Arsenal, the fans were fuming. That the Real Madrid fans were fuming that he had left. And he created so much, and I've seen so many interviews of Ronaldo, and he said, you know, Mesut Ozil was just unbelievable. But Mesut Ozil made his name by being that one player in a team that was allowed to just create. You look at David Silva for Man City, he doesn't do anything defensively at all.
Even De Bruyne.
Right? I mean, De Bruyne does work hard, give him his due, but David Silva is basically Man City's equivalent of Ozil, like that type of player. He doesn't defend, but what he does is he ticks all the boxes, and Pep always finds some way to accommodate him. Now, if you've got a goalkeeper, 9 other outfield players that are prepared to work hard, and you've got the luxury of having somebody like Mesut Ozil where the manager can just say, all I want you to do is concentrate on making us tick, create opportunities. You've got someone of his quality at your club, surely you would find a way to accommodate him. Surely.
I mean, it's all well and good, fans and everybody sitting here going, if you have Mesut Ozil in your squad, you would find a way to accommodate him. But the difference is the manager is there day in, day out with him, and if he's not picking him, there's obviously a reason. So,
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's all well and good saying he has this much quality, therefore he needs to be playing. But nobody knows what his attitude is like. Nobody knows how he is in training. He obviously doesn't fit in with the way Emery wants to play. I mean, when you look at when he was at PSG, I don't think he plays with that sort of player. I mean, at PSG you've obviously got Neymar and Mbappe and all that lot, but I wouldn't say in that team you had like a central attacking midfielder like Ozil is, who just sort of ran around and did nothing, which I don't think is why he fits in. Emery sort of sits with 2 or 3 midfielders who he likes to stay on the ball, sit deep, and then, play out, which is why Guendouzi, I think, is playing so well, and is fitting in with how Emery plays. I think that's why Torreira is playing so well. And even under Xhaka looks a completely new player under Emery than how he did under Wenger. I think it's hard for Ozil to get into that side the way the midfield system works.
Yeah. That's a fair enough point. Anything final from you, Will?
Not really. No, I think Joe summed up Ozil pretty nicely there.
Yeah, well, Pagani's saying David Silva puts in a shift, Ozil goes walkabout and does nothing sometimes. David Silva always turns up. Can't disagree with that. And then Simon said, Emery looks like he wants the players given 100% every second they're on the pitch. Mesut Ozil doesn't do that. So he continues to be one of the players that causes the most controversy and divided opinions, I think, in world football. So,
I mean, on his day, Ozil is unplayable.
yeah,
If you get him into a system where, if you had Ozil, like you say, if you had Ozil in David Silva's position in that City team, and with the right attitude, 100% confidence, whatever it be, he would thrive, because Ozil is that player that finds that pass. Some of the passes that he pulls off when he does play is just beyond stupid. I just don't think he fits the system that Emery wants to try and build at Arsenal, which again is unfortunate. But at that point you've got to get behind the manager, because he obviously has a clear vision of what he wants to do.
yeah. I think he obviously cares about the club, because if you look at when his contract ran out at the end of last season and whatever else, there was obviously all the controversy surrounding him when he retired from international football playing for Germany. He had no contract at Arsenal. I remember seeing something where he come out and said he reported for training after all that had happened and after the summer break or whatever else, and the second he walked back in, the love that he felt towards him from the players, from the staff, from even the club chefs, everybody, he said it just felt like home to him. And if you follow him on any social media and stuff, any players that don't care about their club, they won't post much on there about the club. He always seems to post stuff about Arsenal on there, saying how much he loves the club and whatever else. So, he's obviously got a connection to the club. I think there might just be a bit of stubbornness from his point of view and the reluctancy to work hard, because he's not had to do it anywhere else. At Real Madrid, he was one of their best players. Coming into a club like Arsenal, who play a very, very nice style of football, you would think it wouldn't be too hard to accommodate him. But this is just where the question is, like, where the game's changing now. Are players like Mesut Ozil starting to go out of fashion? Like, that's just the biggest question, isn't it? So, yeah, I think that's the...
I wouldn't say so. I mean, when you put Ozil into that Real Madrid squad, he doesn't need to do any running, because Real Madrid have a quality back line and midfielders that played around Ozil, like you say, that did all the work. When you come to the Premier League, the Premier League is completely different to the La Liga. You don't have a back line behind him at the moment that is going to accommodate Ozil, because if you don't have midfielders that are running back and supporting the back line, which is Arsenal's problem, you're going to concede goals, which you saw over the last couple of years. Which is there's not really much you can do about that. And until you get a revamped back four, I don't think you'll see Ozil much in that Arsenal squad.
No. Well, one final quick question to discuss before we wrap this up. Obviously, we all know about the situation with the scout from Leeds from this week, about being spotted outside Derby's training ground and being arrested and whatever else. Will, do you think that was what do you think about the situation? Should he be penalised? Should the club be penalised?
I just keep finding it funny, to be honest. I haven't quite managed to get a real opinion on it. I've just been finding it really funny that someone's been arrested for spying.
But do you think the fact that he's gone there, he's watching another club train? Fair enough, it's in an enclosed training ground and whatever else, but I mean, is he really doing anything wrong by watching? Bear in mind, you've got scouts that go and watch games, you've got all sorts of stuff in football. You get reports on teams, you get all of this thorough analysis on clubs, what they do, how they play, just because you've watched them train, is that any different? I know obviously it's team specific and stuff, but you know,
if it's the training ground owned by the clubs, then you can always sort of do them for trespassing. I mean, they're not allowed on your property, so therefore it is illegal and you can arrest him.
but I don't think he was in the grounds though, was he? I think he was outside the grounds watching.
Yeah, I think it was just outside the gate.
I mean, technically, there's nothing wrong.
Exactly. Like, what do you think, Joe? Is it illegal? Like,
I mean, by the letter of the law by the FA, it's not illegal. I mean, he even came out in the press conference and said that not only did he do it to Derby, but he'd actually done it to every single club that they'd played this season. So it just happened to be that Derby found out. I mean, you can understand obviously why they're angry, because behind closed doors in your own training ground, you would expect to be able to work on tactics that you wouldn't, expect anybody to see. But at the same time, like I say, it's not illegal. He's technically not done anything wrong. And even in his press conferences, where he explained why he did it, he's the sort of manager that goes that much in depth with his analysis. That, I mean, in the press conference, he showed a 45-minute video of every single way a team attacked, and he said he breaks that down into so many different clips for the players and everything to watch. I mean, I don't see what's wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with researching your opponent. I don't see why somebody should be penalised or punished for simply, getting information that they need on their opponent. I genuinely don't see what's wrong with that.
and the thing is, Bielsa's been saying that he's been doing it for the last 12, 13 years. Like, pretty much on every single club.
He used to do it when he managed in Argentina and everything.
Yeah, so what is the big deal? Like, fair enough, it probably pissed off Derby County and whatever else, but the thing is, from my point of view, being, a manager, I look at that and think to myself, it's just genius. Like, if you've got the facilities to be able to get people to go and watch training sessions, to then report back to you, or games, whatever it is, to be able to come back to you, tell you how they're playing, what they're doing, you have got no reason not to be able to at least understand or attempt to cope with situations that are going to be thrown at you. And I think if you've got the facilities and the time and whatever else to put up, like what you said, like this 45-minute bloody video about every single way that a team attacks and everything like this, then that surely just shows how good of a manager he is. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that.
Maybe he just wanted a good look at Frank Lampard,
Yeah, maybe.
Let's not rule out.
Exactly. So, but no, I mean, anyway, that's probably the end. We've been going on for about an hour and a half now, so it's been going on quite a long time. But yeah, you boys enjoyed this first podcast?
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been good fun.
Yeah, cool. I like talking about football. There's so many different opinions. It's the reason why we all love it so much, isn't it?
Especially when we come from a racing league.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to gain more followers, shush. But no, even so, people in the stream that have been listening all this time, commenting and stuff, massively appreciated. Hopefully this will grow and we will do this a lot more regularly now. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and we haven't got a specific date for our next one, but keep an eye on our Twitter page and we shall keep you thoroughly informed. But thank you all very much for watching. Any final words from you boys?
Finger in.
Fuck's sake. No, all good. So right, anyway, well, thank you all very much for watching and we will see you next time.